I'd like to call to order the Willington Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission meeting for October 24th, 2022. It is 7:35 p.m. and we don't need a roll call or call to order because all three active members are here. And we will move right on to applications to be received. And we don't seem to have any of them, so we'll keep on going beyond that to approval of minutes from the last meeting, which I'm willing to listen to anything that you two guys have to say. Have either of you gotten a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, I had the opportunity this afternoon to look through the minutes, and I didn't see any discrepancies or any changes needed.
Now, Mark, you're muted, so we can't hear what you're saying. Mark?
Hi, Dave.
There you are. Okay, so if nobody has any comments to say about the minutes, I will accept a motion to accept them.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the September 26th, 2022 meeting as written.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's a unanimous. We don't have any public hearings, so the next item on the agenda is new business. And we're looking at a timber harvest at 0 Potter School Road. That's 49/002-00. Owner Willington Development Limited Partnership, applicant Anthony Grossi. Now, was that received tonight?
No, that is eligible for action tonight.
Okay. Is there someone here to speak to this app? You're muted. We can't hear you.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Tony Grossi. I am the applicant. Can you hear me okay? Am I too loud?
Yes. No, you're good.
Okay, I am the applicant. The parcel is off of Fenton Bluffs Road. It's roughly 90 acres. And there are basically 2 stand types with few exceptions. The property was harvested, a small portion of it was harvested back, I'm going to say around 2008 or 2009. And they didn't do very much. And I think maybe they were asked to leave or something because it was kind of strange that only that little portion was done. But in any event, my forester, John Clark, who's a Connecticut certified forester, has gone out. He's done all the flagging. Per your request, the boundaries are done in orange, pink. The skid roads are done in orange. The buffers are along the Fenton Brook are done. We chose to use 50 feet because then we don't have to mark any trees and makes life easier for everybody. Basically, the landing will be on Fenton Bluffs Road. Just, you can see the map. It's just a little bit, just maybe 175 feet north. I guess it would be northeast of the first stream crossing. There are 2 stream crossings. They're marked. One is right just beyond the L and landing, just a little bit south and west of it. The second one is down almost due south in the property. And I've been to both of them. The first one, I will probably use swamp mats, tracking pads in order to cross that so we stay up out of the brook. We will use poles also. The second one is dry, but we will put 2 mats there as well so that we're able to drive up and over it and not stay out of that. It's just bare rock right now. Other than that, this is what's considered a modified shelterwood harvest, which means that we're going to remove all ages of trees in order to regenerate what's there already. The canopy is just about closed, so there's no sunlight right now touching the ground. And that's our intent, is to open it up so that we get some regeneration going and get some new growth happening. The whole project will take probably around, weather permitting, 9 or 10 weeks. And I have in the operational plan, it says what the equipment is. We're a whole tree operation. So we utilize everything that's basically straight. We utilize it pretty much down to 7 or 8 inches and even smaller if we can. That's about it. I took pictures of both of the crossings, so you have pictures of both of the crossings. And I believe that's just about an overview of it. Like I said, the skid roads are flagged. On your map, you'll see that the soil types and the stand types are noted also, so that you can have a look at what's there. Questions?
What kind of equipment did you say you were using?
We have a whole tree operation, which means that we use a harvester to fell the trees, to directionally fell the trees. And then we process the top. We cut the branches off in the woods and pretty much put them in the road and track over them so that they lie flat in the ground, and we fill in any holes that happen to be there. And then we have a skidder that'll bring it up to the landing. And we have a crane with a slasher, which is a 60-inch circle saw, which will process it, and we'll pile the wood up there. And then the trucks will probably have to back down Fenton Bluffs Road from Blas Road, and we'll load the trucks there as well. Our operational hours are usually 7 to 5, but I don't think 5 is gonna work by the time we're there, because it'll be dark.
You spoke of how many crossings do you have?
Two crossings. There's one right below the beaver pond. It says SC2 with a little rectangular box. This is on the main map. It shows all the skid roads and the landing.
Do you guys have that, or do you want me to bring it up?
So that's
I think you should bring it up.
Okay,
SC2, you said?
Yeah, that's the second one.
And is this, how would you classify this water course?
That one's non-existent. It's just rocks right now.
So an
There's no
intermittent,
flow.
an
There's no-
intermittent,
Yes, it's definitely intermittent. So if we get much more rain, it may flow a little bit, but it's flat. There's really no channel, and it's probably, what channel is there is probably almost, I'm gonna say, convex. Thank you, that's the map. So in other
about
words,
how-
you could
how-
walk right across it. It's about 4 feet wide, and there's no flow, and it's almost crowned from the rocks. So there's nothing in there. So once it does start to flow, I'm assuming it'll go to the edges of what the former banks were, which is around 7 feet wide. It's a really very, very, very narrow, rocky crossing.
and your method for the crossing there would be?
Poles, and we have bridges. We have portable bridges,
Like
tracking
timber mats?
timber mats. Yes.
And could you speak the same information for SC1?
Yes. SC1 is a little bit different. The channel is much more defined. There's actually a little turn. Yep, that's it right there. There's a little bend in the brook. You can see it right there. So if you look at the photos that I took and sent to you, there's really just about, well, this is about maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, there was about 10 inches of water right there. You can see right where just below the flag, there's rocks on one side and there's rocks on the other side. So we can pretty much put the mats right across that and go right over it without touching anything. And the approach and the exit are rocky and pretty stable. I don't think we're going to have any corduroy, but if we need to put some corduroy in there, we will.
So the primary crossing for SC1 would be timber mats?
Yes. Yep.
And let's take a look. You provided us with an operational plan. Could you speak to that?
Sure. I have 2 log skidders, which we usually just use one at a time. The other one we keep as a spare. The Timber Pro is a fellow buncher that will cut the trees, pick the trees up and directionally fell them so that we can make a bundle for the skidder to pick up. We then cut the tops off of the trees for what's not merchantable. In other words, the crooked tops and the bushy part and the branches. Those get put in one place and chopped up. They actually get cut up by the fellow buncher. And then it gets brought to the landing. And once it's brought to the landing, the trees are picked up whole and they're delimbed right there. And then there's a saw with a set of bunks that will buck the logs to length, and all the sorting will be done right there and the piling up. And then there'll be a gravel truck road that we will have from the end of the cul-de-sac, and we will load the trucks right there. So basically it's 3 operators right now. And the third operator's not been well lately. So lately it's only been 2 of us, but he should be back by the time we do this.
And you've also provided, as part of your application, a silviculture plan. Could you just speak to that?
Sure. The main purpose of this is to allow sunlight to touch the forest floor. Right now, all of stand 1 is pretty much dark. There's very little sun touching the ground right now. Stand number 2 is a little bit different, but stand number 1 is mostly oak and hardwoods. And there's some white oak and maple and sugar maple and black birch and hickory and ash. The ash mortality is pretty good, actually. Not everything's dead, but for the most part, we harvest most of the ash just because the emerald ash borer is in Connecticut, it is in Willington, and it has killed trees already, and we've cut quite a bit of those along with the gypsy moth. There's not a tremendous amount of gypsy moth. I'd say maybe 2 to 3% of the stand is dead oak. There's a little bit of most of the dead oak is white oak and red oak, and a little bit of black oak. And the regeneration will be advanced regeneration, because right now this forest has trees in it anywhere from, say, 6 to 12 inches in diameter on the low end to fully mature trees that are 20 plus inches in diameter. And our thing is to take out the understory where it is something that's not going to work for future growth. It's not going to have any value, any timber value, have no value as far as a future crop tree. those trees get removed. Those are the ones that are stunted. When you walk through the woods, you must see, you have a big tree, and underneath the tree, you have all the smaller ones, and they're crooked and bent, and they're reaching for the sun. So our idea is to release those trees. First of all, those get harvested for firewood usually, or for pulpwood. And then the trees that remain will be the trees that are fully formed crowns, and they're anywhere from 10 to say 14 inches in diameter. That's our target for what's going to be left over afterwards. And that way the sun will hit the ground, and you will also have regeneration. And there's also a lot of saplings, which, you know, my forester tries to locate the skid rows where we're not driving through some advanced regeneration that say is only in the sapling stage, because there's lots of deer out there. We've even seen some bear sign out there as well. And their browse pretty much gets whatever's on the ground if there's a big deer population right there. And it's pretty good. There's a lot of nice trails that we used in the beginning that were made by the deer. And I haven't seen much of anything else. Obviously, you have squirrels and rabbits. There's a lot of rabbits this year as well. That's stand number one. Stand number two is a little bit different because that was the area that was previously harvested. And that area that was already harvested, with our goal there is to leave those trees that are say between 20 and 40 feet in height. And those trees are usually anywhere between 8 and 12 inches in diameter. And the ones that have a chance at growing are the ones that we will leave. And we will leave some of the what we consider to be seed trees, which are the over mature trees that are not real old trees, but trees that are say in that 60 to 80 year old range, in order to protect some of the future regeneration that's going to happen, because there's a lot of pine here. So the pine will come in great numbers. Within 2 or 3 years, you probably won't be able to walk through there for all the pine that's going to be there, which is kind of our plan. So that this forest, when it's done, will have a pretty good stocking of both softwoods and hardwoods. And
talk about the buffers that the exceptions and
Yes.
and the buffers that you're going to be keeping along the water courses and the property boundaries, etc.
Yeah, Fenton Brook is 50 feet. We're going to use 50 feet as the buffer along Fenton Brook, obviously on both sides. And we don't cut right up to people's boundaries. I've had people come out and ask us if they'll cut those trees because they're, threatening to fall on their ground or whatever. And I usually talk to them because we did notify them all, and they know that we're going to be there eventually. So 10 feet along the roads is usually actually go a little bit more than 10 feet along the roads. The roads can be anywhere between 20 and 30 feet, but there really is no place. If you'll take a look at that map, I'm gonna have to pull it up again on my computer. If you take a look at that map, you'll see that
All right, could you put that map back up?
Yep, 1 sec.
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me get mine to do it too. Okay, so along Potter School Road, that if you look way up in the northwest corner, you see that little handle that's up there. That's way up there, way
Yep.
up in the upper left-hand corner. That's practically a bluff. I mean, that's probably 8 feet above Potter School Road. So there was no access there anyway, so we wouldn't be doing anything in there anyway. So there's really no frontage along there. There's really no frontage more or less than, in other words, we don't abut Balaz Road either. And on Fenton Bluffs Drive, the only area is that little where you see ST2 just due south of the cul-de-sac. That's
Right.
the only area right there that would be even close. but it's still more, it doesn't touch Balaz Road. It only touches Fenton Bluffs Road. And that would have the landing in the staging area anyway. So that really doesn't, the 15 feet, we usually use 25 feet along roads. But we decided that 15 feet would probably be better. And then we realized that there really isn't any place where it touches the roads. But along the boundaries, the common boundaries with the abutters, that we won't cut anything within, I believe you put in within 10 feet of those houses or 15 feet of those houses, unless they ask. And usually they do. I usually come up and talk to them. Yeah, 10 feet of roadways and 15 feet of property boundaries. So
Right,
that's
this piece is pretty isolated, huh?
It is isolated. In fact, if you know where the bridge is, just before you get to that little bluff, the road where the entrance on the east side of the property, if you, as soon as you go over the 84 bridge, that pretty much right there is the beginning of, you can see, obviously it doesn't cover the stuff that's, right, because it's set back behind the houses, but 84, I can look down from that other boundary and look right down onto Route 84. So it's pretty much Route 84 and then woods. I mean, it's all behind what Al Balaz used to own. All of that stuff over there.
Right. Okay, folks, you got any more questions?
I think that about covers it. Appears that the application is in compliance with our regulations.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to do a motion on this?
So just one more question for the applicant. So I didn't see, oh, maybe it's in the application form. Okay, yeah, so you're going to be conducting the harvest in accordance with the deep BMP manual.
Yeah,
Water quality.
yeah, that's what we use. That's the standard now for all the classes. In fact, they pass it out in Massachusetts too.
Yeah, we sort of based our regs on it.
Yes. Yeah, and it works, it's nice to keep it uniform when we're abutting states. And I believe they're even talking about doing reciprocity with Massachusetts right now too. Connecticut is for licensing. So.
Mark, did you have any questions of the applicant?
No, I think everything's in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve timber harvest application TH 22-4 with all the information provided by the applicant, the operational plan and the silviculture plan, and what was described on the site map.
I'll second that.
Yep. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And we got a unanimous. Yeah, thank you for a decent presentation.
You're welcome. And I will notify you at least a week in advance of us coming. Help is kind of an issue right at the moment. Nobody seems to want to do this anymore. The average age of the man that works for me is 61, if you can believe that. And we don't, I'm trying to woo some younger people, but it's a real problem right at the moment. So I will let you know.
61 is young.
61 is young. I'm 68 and we should be able to have more guys like me out there working, but yeah, so.
You gotta start recruiting at some of the forestry schools like Paul Smith's College or ESF.
Yeah, well, I have friends. I have a lot of friends. In fact, I had a forester that worked for me who now works for the state. And I've asked him to put the feelers out. And I've gotten some calls, but I've only ever had one forester who really and truly wanted to work. And he worked for me for a lot of years. And he just passed away very young. He was 54. And he was the only forester. Usually foresters just want to do forestry work. But sometimes at Paul Smith's, you will find people that really only want to get a 2-year degree and become a tech. And if they do that, sometimes you can bring those guys over to our side. But a lot of times they just want to do that and then they'll finish their bachelor's degree so that they qualify for like a state job or something like that. But yeah, we do. I advertise in the trades, and I've been in business for 39 years. And it's over the years, it's diminished the amount of people. We used to have 10 people working and no more. I mean, the most we've ever had lately is 4, plus I have a truck driver.
Huh.
And that's it. So, and the reason why, if anybody ever wants to know why we have all the machines and we mechanize, it's because nobody wants to run a chainsaw anymore. You know,
Well,
people
I can
physically-
appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's true. Who wants to, the last guy that applied for a job said, I'll come to work for you, Tony, as long as I don't have to run a chainsaw. And I said, that's like Mario Andretti saying he'll go to the racetrack, but he won't drive a car. But what he meant was he didn't want to, physically fell trees all day long like he used to when he was in his 20s and he worked for me. So yeah, it's quite a problem right now, industry wide. So if you guys know anybody that wants to work, please give them my number. It's public. I have a website. So I'm lobbying for some help if you can help me out. But thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Tony.
And do I need to do anything else? I may build the landing. If we get a lot of snow this winter, I may build the landing first to see how that goes. I'll use one of the local contractors or I'll buy the material from Larry Becker from Diane, and we'll get the tracking pad in and all that done. And if you guys want to take a look at that before we start, you're welcome to as well. Okay.
Great.
Very good.
Okay,
I'll let you know. I'll give Chris a call. before
okay,
we start.
great.
Okay,
That'll work. Thank you,
Just
Tony.
keep in touch
All right.
with Mike.
Thank you.
will do. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good
So we're
night.
moving on to IW-22-10, application for construction of a new commercial building with solar array within the upland review area at 0 Ruby Road. Owner Ralph Toulis and applicant Peter Parent. Did I get my accents in the right place?
Yeah, you Frenched it up a little bit too much. We just do parent. So I'm Pete Parent, professional engineer, representing the applicant, which is going to be Down East Green. They're going to be the owners of the property. They're currently have an agreement with the Tullis to purchase the property and do the development. I'm on the civil engineering side. Mike, is it okay if I share my screen, or do you share the?
Go for it.
So this is the proposed development with the wetlands in a darker blue and the lighter blue being the upland review areas. So there is a channel and a small wetland area on the east side of the road here, associated with the FedEx property, I believe. And then there is this small wetland pocket on site. So this whole property was historically used as a borrow pit. So you've got some rolling terrain, and it just seems like this area was just over excavated at some point, just below the water table. And that is the opinion of our wetland scientists. Goddard Consulting went out there, they did the flagging, they came to the agreement that that wetland here on site, excavated wetland. They felt that it was just a man-made pocket. And then Mr. Tullis provided us with a letter that he had from Mr. Yanni back in 2015 that came up with the same basics conclusion that wetland was really just kind of an over excavated pit. It doesn't really have a whole lot of function or value, but it is, by definition, a wetland. So the intent here is to build a small commercial building to house a quick serve restaurant, and then parking to support that. Obviously, there's no on-site, municipal sewer or municipal water in Ruby Road. So we'd be proposing an on-site septic system in this location. And then the public water wells would be over here at the edge of the parking lot. Then the remainder of the site would be developed with. We are keeping a pretty good buffer. Obviously, all the water area kind of drains in. Now there's no formal outlet of that wetland. The soils are pretty permeable. Obviously, it was used as a borrow pit. The soils are all hydraulic soil group A. And then we're providing a water quality basin at the edge of the site here. Any water on the site that doesn't flow into this existing wetland kind of meanders through some channels on site into an old swale that enters into the drainage system for I-84. So our on-site, paving would all be collected by a series of catch basins, would then discharge through a hydrodynamic separator and into that water quality basin. I think it's a pretty straightforward project. It just, obviously we're based on the slopes to this wetland. We've got a huge upland review area here. So I'm happy to answer any questions you folks may have. We can chat.
Well, as I remember looking at that piece of property, only every time I drive by it. It seems to me that pretty much the whole piece has been disturbed. Is that correct?
Yes, it's been cleared several times. If you go and look at like the Google Earth, you can kind of go through the years where the trees have grown up, they've been cut, they've grown up, they've been cut. And yeah, the majority of it, Mr. Tullis can give you a little bit more history. I believe it's his family, but has been disturbed, as part of an excavation operation as well.
Right. So, Patrick, what do you think?
Could you describe during the construction what the construction sequence is going to be, and establishment of E&S controls, the installation of the solar array, things of that nature? What's the overall plan and sequencing of the project?
So I believe, we've got in our E&S control plan here, we're putting a ring of silt fence around that wetland and then another ring at the top to kind of isolate that wetland from any soil disturbance. Typically, our sequence suggests that the contractor kind of start from the bottom and work their way up. So construct the water quality basin, get that loomed and seeded, and then start their construction. And in this case, fill to create this platform. Right now, grade kind of dips down pretty steeply from the road. And when we're all said and done, we're going to be a little bit higher than the road. So there's quite a bit of fill that needs to be brought in here to create this level pad for the building and parking lot. So we would suggest that they construct the water quality basin, get that loom seeded and get that stabilized, and then start their fill, construct their drainage system, and then once this is stabilized, then they can tie their drainage system in. I would assume that this probably would be two kind of separate operations. Here they would likely have one contractor working on the commercial development portion of this, getting this area up to grade and building foundation poured and the utilities in. And then, a specialized contractor is going to come in and install the solar array, potentially, at the same time or slightly before or slightly after, depending on, access requirements and that sort of thing.
It's about how many kilowatts are you planning on generating? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I don't know the number offhand. Mr. Thompson did state it at the planning and zoning meeting. I think he said 900 kilowatt hours or 900,000 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
So the stormwater basin, that's intended to be a infiltration basin as opposed to.
We have not sized it for infiltration. We've only sized it for the water quality volume and for detention, but it will infiltrate some stormwater. But as far as our calculations are concerned, we didn't take any of that into account.
So if this does fill up, where does the discharge go?
So it overflows into that swale that heads towards the I-84 drainage. So this rectangle you see here is the spillway. So if we get up to elevation, 603, then it'll discharge out and over into that swale.
I guess my question would be is what protections on the receiving slope are proposed to prevent any further erosion in the event of an overflow?
So we typically do just a loomed and seeded spillway. The velocities over that are not anticipated to be very high. We're working at 4 feet per second kind of velocity coming over the top of that when it does overtop. So that's something that a grass stand can handle. We have done in the past riprap spillways, but this one doesn't necessarily need that kind of protection given the velocities we're expecting out there.
So how big is the piece that's going to be draining into that pond?
So the only area that drains into that pond is the developed area from the commercial side of things. It would be the parking lot and the roof.
And that's a couple acres?
I want to say it's just over 1. It's only a 3-acre parcel.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. And about half of that is impervious.
Yeah,
That
so
1
we're
acre?
about 3/4 of an acre of developed area, and probably 75% of that is going to be impervious.
Right.
So you mentioned about seeding the basin. Is that just going to be with like turf grass, or do you plan on using like a wet meadow mix perhaps to?
So we have this Ernst conservation seed, native grasses and perennial seed mix specified. It isn't expected that basin will drain and be dry most of the time. So we didn't specify anything that would have like a wetland mix in it because we don't think it would survive.
And it would also have to be maintained, so you would have a landscaper come and mow, or?
Yeah, so we've got our stormwater operation and maintenance plan here. And we do call out for mowing when the ground is dry at least twice per year to kind of keep it a grass basin.
Okay.
Right. So Mike,
Yes, sir.
do we received this last meeting, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, you received it last meeting, so you can issue a decision tonight if you choose. One question that I have while I have my mic open, so Pete, one of the things that I'm seeing people implement, and I don't know if there's a preference or what your thoughts are, and I'm not sure if there's any clearing proposed on the property or how much there will be, but I'm seeing, at least in some places, people use wood chip berms in lieu of silt fence because it's on the property and they don't require maintenance. They don't blow out like silt fence does.
Mhm.
You probably know it can be hard to find someone that can install silt fence properly.
Yeah, nobody likes to dig the trench.
Right. So rather than having it look like the United Nations blowing in the breeze with the silt fence, we're seeing a lot of folks move in that direction. Do you think that's something that could be done here, or have you had any experience?
Yeah, I mean, so right now the site doesn't have a lot of trees on it. It does have quite a bit of woody brush. So I don't know. There's definitely stuff that could be chipped. I just don't know about volume wise if it would be enough to really do the amount of E&S protection that we've got kind of laid out here. We've got quite a bit of checks in this proposed little swale that we're creating, and then at tops and bottoms of the banks. But certainly, I mean, we can put something like that into effect where it can be. If we want to have them focus on the natural E&S controls right around the wetland versus having a silt fence or something like that, we can certainly add notes to that effect.
Okay, thanks.
So I don't know how relevant this is, but rainstorms seem to be sharper and dropping more water than they used to.
Mhm.
So what used to be called a 25-year event is now a 10-year event.
Yes, so we use the most up-to-date precipitation data, which has been climate adjusted. I think they did that in 2015, 2016. So it is adjusted to higher rates of rainfall versus the old, Connecticut DOT book method. So we do use the more up-to-date curves and storm depths for our calculations.
Right.
One question, what is, I don't know, when you're going for final site stabilization, what would be your method for establishing vegetation on the site?
I would suspect that the whole area here that's going to be disturbed and then built up with the solar array would likely be hydroseeded with some kind of lower maintenance grass mix, but it's still going to need to be maintained, obviously to keep the weeds down below the height of the solar panels themselves. And then these side slopes would all just be grassed. And then we do have some street trees and some landscaping out by the road. But primarily the site is intended to just kind of be a grassy site at the end of the day.
Okay. If nobody else has any more questions, I will entertain a motion on this.
Does the property owner have his hand up? Would he be willing to speak on behalf of the application?
I would most certainly like to, if you can hear me okay.
We can hear you.
Good. Couple comments that I'd like to add, if I could share my screen. Okay. Just speaking a little bit to overall site drainage. Obviously, this being a family property, I know about 72 years worth of history, so I'll give you a little bit. Access into this borrow pit, if you can see my mouse pointer, was on a access path, road, whatever you want to call it, right through here. Overall drainage from the borrow pit pretty much all wound up here. And the water ran to the north, and there is a reinforced concrete pipe that goes underneath the two highway ramps. And that pretty much drained the entire area. The lowest area of this borrow pit is very, very close to high groundwater level in the springtime. And I'm not sure, I don't know the underground strata as far as bedrock is concerned, but I suspect since there is a bedrock outcrop along the exit ramp over here, you can see my mouse moving,
Yep.
that bedrock is probably relatively close to the surface. We've never dug a test pit to find out for certain. This corner of the site, lower left corner on my screen, actually drains down towards the boundary of TA with I-84. But pretty much a significant area, either infiltrates the gravel, the underlying gravel, and disappears somewhere, or surface runoff of the lower borrow pit in this area would run to the north underneath the ramps. One thing that may come up from a planning and zoning perspective is there is a hump right in here that limits visibility to the south as you come off the exit ramp. Now it's off-site for certain, and the applicant at this point has not proposed anything there. But then getting the okay from a DOT rights-of-way to do any grading off-site cannot happen unless the town has given its blessing to development on the property. I've had conversations with rights-of-way, but that was the response I got. I couldn't do it on speculation of selling the property, but once it was permitted, they would entertain some grading in this area, because if you walked it, it's up and down. I mean, it's really dramatic up and down because of the nature of the previous operations before the exit and entrance ramps were built back in the 70s. So this is pretty awkward terrain in here. And I can think it would benefit from a business perspective, it would benefit both businesses, both this and TA, to get some grading done there. I can't commit to it as it's not my development, it's just an observation. Any other questions that you all might have, I'd be happy to address with respect to the property.
Okay, thank you, Ralph.
I hope that helps.
Also looked when you were talking about where the proposed overflow swale is, you said there's an existing swale. If you just scroll up a little bit, you said there's a pipe. And then if you look down, there's a catch basin there.
Right on.
So is that pipe just your cursor down to the over?
That catch basin?
That's what it's CB.
Yes.
No, that picks up drainage off the top of the hill here. There is a swale that runs along the crest of the hill that drains to that catch basin. It's an open-ended culvert somewhere in here that runs underneath the two ramps and drains to the north side.
Okay.
I don't know if that catch basin is connected below grade to the culvert that I know runs north-south here. I've
That's
never,
just something, yeah, it caught my eye. Maybe that drains into there and then
it may,
further off.
Patrick, but I have not explored the underground connections because I've never had a reason to.
And hopefully you never will.
Exactly.
Hey, Ralph, how much excavating is going to go on under and around the array? Do you know that?
I don't know. I know they have looked at trying to smooth out the terrain a little bit to facilitate the ground mounts, but I have not had any discussion with the buyer about exactly how much. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of high spots here
Mhm.
that would get knocked down and probably just redistributed.
Yes,
So they're not planning on bringing in fill for that area, or?
For the array, it doesn't appear to me. Mr. Parent might be able to speak to that a little bit better than I could because he's done more site investigation.
yes, yeah, we're trying to balance cuts and fills in the array area. And we need to maintain about a 10% maximum slope to be able to install the panels. So there is quite a bit of grading, but it's fairly minimal in the depth of cut or fill. But most of the site will end up being reworked at some level.
If you could get the blessing of rights of way, you could pick up a lot of material right in here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it's not for me to commit to that because that's Mr. Parent's client who's going to have the yay or nay on that.
Pete, one of the things that I think in talking to Joe Dillon, that he said has come up before, and I don't actually know how significant it is that sometimes there is trouble getting a stabilization at the drip line of the panels. I'm not so sure that that's a significant issue, particularly because you're indicating that there's nothing here that's incredibly steep slopes.
Right.
I just didn't know if you talked about that or if the folks from down east are thinking that is going to be an issue, or I mean, it shouldn't be. What's the size of the panel spec here? One of those individual panels, do you have a sense of how big one is to get an idea of how much water actually should flow off of it?
2.5 by 5.
One of the panels they're 7 feet long and about 4 feet wide, 3.5 feet wide. So they're basically a little bit smaller than a sheet of plywood. And I know on other projects that we've done, the panel installers have put crushed stone at the base of those, to kind of prevent that issue that you're talking about. So that's certainly something we can look to add or ensure that's done.
I'm not, that's from my perspective, and I'm not a commission member, but to me, that just creates, I mean, the idea of having the area green and not interrupted by all these random pockets of stone that are probably not going to be maintained after some years anyways. I'm not sure it's a significant issue. I mean, what is it, 28 square feet? I don't know that there's a lot of runoff there that it's going to be an issue. From an ENS standpoint, maybe it's just something we can look at unless folks here are really interested in identifying a solution today to have a bit of an answer for P&Z so we can address it there if need be. I don't know what the commission thinks.
So my experience with solar array on a much larger scale installation, and that's why I brought up the question of soil stabilization. That is one of the key things, is that with the sheet flow coming off of there, it does create channels. So it's very hard to stabilize and get vegetative growth as these things are being installed. That usually comes on the back end. So ENS controls would probably be for the installation until vegetative growth could be established is probably the biggest thing, concern for erosion and sediment loading.
Well, a consideration, I would think, for that, Patrick, would be a linear strip of crushed stone under the drip edge, just to at least eliminate the effect of water impact on the ground. And that would help to mitigate any effect on the establishment of ground cover.
Yeah, it's slow the velocity.
You
Just
might
to
be
break
able to
up
use
that-
something like wood chips in a case like that instead of stone, because then your grass mowing and vegetative matter mowing would not be throwing rocks around.
Well, I don't think you're going to set any mower very low in this area when you mow twice a year anyway, but I have
Yeah.
got 20 cubic yards of wood chips at my house that you guys can have for this. Just come and get it.
I'll bring my wheelbarrow.
You're more than welcome. It's more than I'll ever use.
So I think that brought up some good points. Do we want to evaluate this or any conditions we want to?
I think most of the conditions would be something that P and Z does rather than us. Because even though it's in an upland review area, it's really, there's not too much for us here.
I think the biggest thing would be establishment of the ENS around and maintaining that around the isolated wetland. Now,
Right.
you mean do you intend just to leave that isolated wetland alone and not clear any vegetation in there, just kind of leave as is?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a little bit of grading up along the top edge of it, but the wetland itself, we're not intending to mess with. We're staying, 15, 20 feet away from it with any work.
Okay. And that's where you'll establish your ENS controls?
Yes.
So I've been kind of keeping track of the things you've talked about. And I can go through some of the conditions that I think you might want to consider if you're interested in hearing them.
Absolutely.
So the standard stuff, all ENS controls shall be installed prior to the commencement of site work. I have that no soil stockpiling shall occur within 100 feet of the on-site wetland. So there's going to be a little bit of fluidity with that. So I think just having them hold 100 foot from that on the property will help in case something comes up. That should leave a significant portion of the property unencumbered and allow them to move some of that stuff around, particularly in the area where the building is, where it's pretty much out of the way anyways. As we've done with others, we ask them to give us a CAD file of the flagged wetland so that we can put it on the map. If the commission liked the discussion, I don't know, in lieu of the installation of silt fencing, a wood chip berm shall be installed to protect the existing wetland basin. So basically replacing it with a wood chip. As Pete mentioned, there's probably not enough to do the whole site, but I've seen this work in other areas and it seems to work pretty well. It's much lower maintenance, something to consider. Because this has got to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm not sure exactly, there may be discussions there about other things, trying to build it in so that there's some freedom should minor modifications to the plan happen, that they don't have to come back here. So I have something that states the commission's agent in consultation with the town engineer may approve minor modifications to the approved site plan, provided they do not significantly alter the proposed site grading or building and parking lot location. So if something has to be tweaked related to a drainage review or something else, there's some flex there, but anything significant needs to come back in it. And I would consult our town engineer on that. And then in light of the last thing that the commission discussed, I don't know if you like the wording or not, but a long-term erosion control solution shall be included on the plan to address the drip line of the panels or of each panel. I'm not sure what you want, but trying to pick up what you guys were discussing.
You know, Mike, they do make wattles, wood chip. They're kind of heavy, but it's
Yeah,
an actual wattle with the wood chip. You know, they're almost like 10-inch diameter.
so I could put a wood chip berm or similar straw wattles.
Oh, it's actually wood chips in the wattle.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they make a product that's a sock filled with wood chips that you can purchase.
Yeah,
I think I've seen a demo where they blow them into the burlap.
okay.
Yeah, because you know the thing with silt fence, and we've all seen it, right? It's like it gets installed, but after site stabilization, does it ever get removed?
Yeah,
It's not supposed to.
the straw wattles, they can be staked, and I guess the netting is broken down by the sun, and they just basically you stake it and then you just let nature take its course and the straw degrades. So I mean, I can have something, we can add language which is silt fencing, in lieu of silt fencing, a wood chip berm, wattles or similar solution shall be installed, and
Mhm.
you know, everything is subject to availability now, and I don't want everything to get held up because they can't get one of those things. I don't know what you guys think, or if you want me to just leave the silt fence.
I think that that's a good idea to try to put the biodegradable stuff in there. Those silt fences are ugly in the middle of the woods.
Mhm.
So, shall
Oh,
we?
there was
finish your list?
one thing. You guys have in your application materials an NENS control bond.
Yes.
So you plan on taking out a bond to make sure you're
But
Okay.
my understanding was that it would be required.
Yes.
So we would bond, we're not gonna double bond, but we would bond for ENS. So we wouldn't bond the project on the wetland side and then take it again on the planning and zoning side, but the town will bond for the ENS.
okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Do you want me to put the conditions on the screen for you to read?
Or can we just reference your conditions as presented?
I
Your
think
meeting.
that would work. So who's going to make this motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve IW 22-10. Zero Ruby Road. Per the information provided in the application and supporting documentation and conditions presented by the agent.
I'll second
close?
that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We got another unanimous one. Boy, we're shooting on all cylinders tonight.
I liked how you guys included like a stormwater scepter or vortechnic unit to piece out any trash or pollutants in
Yep.
your stormwater. That's good.
Yep. Well, we'll move right along to old business, which
Thank
there
you,
isn't
gentlemen.
any of, and I like that. And then we'll go on to correspondence. Transfer of wetland scientist of record at Love's Travel Stop.
So I don't have anything from them yet. I reached out last week. They are still working on updated bond lists and final CO documents. So there's a lot of different things that they need to provide to us. The other thing that they are in the process of finalizing, I've been tagged on a bunch of the emails. They're working on this with the state to do all their final NDDB reporting to DEEP. So they're working on that. So I heard back from Nick Roy today, and they would anticipate having that for the next meeting. The other thing that, just to kind of give you a quick update, we've been dealing with, if you've been by the property, you've seen it, and right at the low spot of the road where their the limit of their construction and their approval on Polster meets the town's current grade, there's a low spot. It's lower than where the basin is that was installed, and it's lower obviously than where Polster Road existing Polster Road is. And throughout the project, they have had consistent issues with water coming off the road there. So we're trying to work on some stabilization. They've installed some riprap to prevent it from kind of silting up everything downhill, which obviously there's wetland everywhere over there. And one of the things that I'm asking them to do is to install some plantings at the bottom of that to further slow down and treat anything that makes it beyond the riprap. So nothing within the wetland proper. So I'm working with Troy to make sure that there's no issues with snow clearing operations and other stabilization concerns, and with their folks. So that's been something we've been trying to handle. But as far as the wetland professional stuff, they should have something for us at the next meeting.
Okay, great. So now I guess, do you have anything for staff report?
I think I just gave it to you. I don't have anything else.
Oh, you mixed them together. Okay, good enough.
Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Public comment?
Only one.
There's only one public guy here.
Yeah, I know. It's raining in Dallas, by the way. That's why I'm so dark in the picture. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Dallas,
Oh,
for what it matters.
Thank you for joining us.
I
yeah.
wouldn't miss it.
Hey, he's got a vested interest in this meeting.
A little bit, yes. Gentlemen, I thank you for your attention to detail, and hopefully my contribution was helpful.
Oh, it was.
Okay, y'all have a great night.
Okay, thanks, Ralph.
Thanks. Have a good trip.
All right. Thanks, Ralph.
Now we go on to Mike's best part of the meeting,
I'd like to
adjournment.
make a motion to adjourn the Willington Inland Wetland and Water Courses Commission, October 24th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second that.
There you go.
Mark?
So does anybody want to vote against that?
No, I don't think so.
Any further discussion?
We're done, baby.
All right. That was a good meeting.